The start of Philadelphia Eagles training camp is just days away, and with that being so close, some interesting news and rumors have now come out regarding the Eagles' potential plans for the future, specifically talking about guys that the Birds might want to wrap up for the long term. In addition, we might also have some more interesting news about Kelee Ringo just ahead of training camp, and do the Eagles have the brightest future out of any NFL team? Well, we're going to talk about all that in this video today, so let's not waste any time and get straight into it. Obviously, heading into the offseason, the Philadelphia Eagles' main goal was to wrap up their franchise QB in Jalen Hurts by signing him to a long-term contract extension, and back in April, they were able to get that done as the Eagles signed Hurts to a historic 5-year, $255 million contract extension, which became the biggest contract in NFL history in terms of annual value. Now, that was obviously then broken by Lamar Jackson a little bit later, but still, nonetheless, a huge contract extension for Jalen Hurts. And obviously, the casual fan would look at this contract and think that it's going to cripple the Eagles' ability to add new players in the future, and that their real shot of winning a Super Bowl had came and went at this point now that they had signed Hurts to that contract. But this isn't really the case, as the contract is actually surprisingly pretty team-friendly. I mean, the cap hits on this contract throughout the first 4 years are not nearly what you'd expect, plus the total amount of fully guaranteed money isn't nearly as high as many of the other QBs who have already been signed to big contracts. So I'm not going to go into the full details of this contract because I've already done that in multiple other previous videos, so if you want to check those out after this video, you can, but you get the gist. And the reason that I mention this is because it's going to be very important in discussing today's topic, as the Hurts extension is a great example of what the Eagles like to do. They identify when they have talent on the roster and they wrap it up as quickly as possible, and the Eagles have been very successful in doing that during Howie Roseman's tenure as GM, and now it seems as they could be preparing to dish out another one of these very important extensions before this season begins. But it's not for a player this time, it's for the team's head coach Nick Sirianni. As it was reported by Derek Gunn of Jacob Sports Media back in March that the Eagles could be looking up to wrap up the soon-to-be third-year head coach very shortly, as when talking about a potential extension for Sirianni, he said, quote, "Knowing Howie Roseman the way I do, I would think that would be a priority after getting the Jalen Hurts deal done." And I would hope that it is, because Sirianni has had a huge hand in the Eagles' success over the past couple seasons, and quite frankly, he's earned another contract extension. I mean, Nick Sirianni coming in as the head coach, obviously, a lot of people didn't expect him to be very good, simply because of the fact that he made a bad first impression in his opening press conference, but ever since then, Nick Sirianni has just proved the doubters wrong. I mean, the Eagles started the 2021 season 2-5, but then Nick Sirianni gave that flower speech, and ever since then, the Eagles have barely lost a game. I mean, obviously, in the 2021 season, they went on a huge run to close the season, and they made the playoffs with a record of 9-8 and surprised everybody, because that was a year in which a lot of people thought that the Eagles were going to be a 4 or 5 win team. But no, Sirianni helped that team to overachieve by building a winning culture and getting everyone to buy in. And then obviously this past season in 2022, he got an incredibly talented roster to almost fulfill their potential of winning a Super Bowl. He got all the way to the big game in just his second season as the head coach. And if not for a few unfortunate plays here and there, they very well could have won the Super Bowl in Sirianni's second season. So I definitely think Sirianni has earned another contract extension, and Derek Gunn seems to agree with that reasoning that I just laid out, as he said, quote, "Nick Sirianni has shown in 2 seasons that he is a quality coach. His offense is creative, players gravitate towards him. Howie Roseman is very good at identifying people in the building they want to keep beyond their existing contracts. If I'm betting on Howie Roseman, I say the contract is done before the season starts this year." And honestly, I really hope it is, because I love Nick Sirianni. I think he's the perfect coach for this team, and I'd love to see him here for many years to come. But he's not the only Eagle that could be on the verge of a contract extension, because there have been several recent rumors talking about different players that could be extended sooner rather than later. As Alex Ballentine of Bleacher Report recently wrote an article titled "Eagles' Top Contract Extension Priorities Entering Training Camp," where he listed 3 guys. The first one being DeAndre Swift, which I think is interesting because there's no doubt a dilemma with potentially extending Swift. I mean, if you were to extend Swift now, you'd be taking a risk because simply, first of all, he hasn't played a game for the Eagles yet, and second, he's had a pretty extensive injury history, so you would be banking on the fact that he's able to stay healthy throughout the course of the contract that you give him, and it could potentially be an overpay for a guy who struggles to stay on the field. But if you wait to extend him until after the season and he does stay healthy, I would expect him to have a pretty big year and earn a somewhat sizable contract extension a la Miles Sanders last year that maybe the Eagles wouldn't be so willing to pay. So that's something the Eagles would have to consider in potentially waiting to extend DeAndre Swift or doing it right now. We do know that there are reports of the Eagles wanting to extend extend Swift earlier in this offseason, so it definitely does seem like they would be interested in extending Swift sooner rather than later, and it could definitely make sense for both sides because of the current running back market. And Alex Ballentine outlines this as he says, quote, "If the Eagles like what they see out of him so far, it would be a good time to get a contract extension done. After watching Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs, and Saquon Barkley all go without an extension, the market is dire for running backs. With all three of them set to hit the market next season, there's going to be a plethora of talented backs available. An extension makes sense for both sides. For Swift, it's a chance to guarantee himself some money over the next few seasons. For the Eagles, it's about locking up a piece of their offense and ensuring continuity for a few more years while the running back market is still down." So honestly, I do think that extending Swift now or sooner rather than later would be a good idea for those reasons that he just outlined there. So I guess we'll see if that's something that happens before the season starts. Now, the next guy that the article lists is offensive lineman Jack Driscoll, which also makes some sense as well. I mean, sure, Driscoll isn't a star or anything even close to that, but he is a good depth piece for the offensive line who's seen the field a decent amount over the past couple of seasons, and he's had some success when, again, he's been on the field. So the article gives some similar reasoning as to why he should be extended, as it says, quote, "The former fourth-round pick has shown the versatility to play either the guard or tackle position while playing in 37 games and making 16 starts over the last 3 seasons. As Lane Johnson continues to get older, it's more important to have a solid succession plan at right tackle." Now, the article seems to allude to the fact that maybe when Lane Johnson retires, Driscoll could take over, and I don't think that I really agree with that, as I do think the Eagles should probably draft someone else to fill that role when the time comes, but I also don't think that extending Driscoll for the right price right now would be a bad idea because he's a somewhat serviceable player that brings depth to this offensive line. Now, the last player that the article lists is newly acquired receiver Olamide Zaccheaus, and honestly, I don't really know if I agree with this one or not. I mean, Oz is a good player, and although he hasn't played a game for the Eagles yet, I do expect him to be effective in whatever role that the Eagles give him, but on the other hand, I don't really know why you would extend him before camp when you just signed him to a 1-year deal a couple months ago. Now, the article's reason is as follows, quote, "It's worth taking a look at getting Olamide Zaccheaus on a longer contract already. The Eagles aren't going to find a better value pick as their third receiver unless they decide to draft one with a day 1 or 2 pick." Now, that is a fair point. I mean, assuming Zaccheaus is as effective as he was in Atlanta, the Eagles probably won't get a wide receiver number 3 as good as him for as good a value. Plus, with all the questions surrounding the assumed current wide receiver 3, Quez Watkins, maybe it is worth taking a look at extending Oz now for a cheap price, but I don't really know. I mean, maybe they want to wait and see how he performs. This one's a little confusing to me, so I'm going to turn to you guys. Let me know what you think about a potential Olamide Zaccheaus contract extension down in the comments below. Do you think that'd be a good move for the Eagles to make? And also, just let me know your opinions on whether the Eagles should extend Swift, Driscoll, or Sirianni as well. Now, that's the last of the contract extension talk, but we still got a couple more things to talk about here as we get ready to start training camp in just a couple days. But before we do that, I just want to say, if you are enjoying the video and want to see others like it, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Around 80% of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed. If you're one of those people, you've been watching the videos consistently, you're enjoying them, and you love the Philadelphia Eagles, make sure you fix that right now and subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss when any other videos are uploaded. I think that's a win-win for the both of us. Now, with that being said, let's get back into the video. Now, as we approach training camp, there are a couple players we got to keep our eyes on, and one of those guys is no doubt rookie cornerback Kelee Ringo, as he's been making headlines recently, whether it be for working out with NFL stars, finally signing his contract not too long ago, or the fact that in recent days, a lot of people have been speculating that Ringo could actually find a role in the defense this year, and maybe that comes by way of a positional switch. And a lot of this speculation stems from a tweet from Joe Castro of Philly the podcast, where he said, quote, "Being told the Eagles have very high hopes for Kelee Ringo. A position switch is something both sides are open to, and no one wants this to be a redshirt year. Expect Kelee to find a role in this defense." Now, if this is true, then Ringo is going to most definitely be one of the more interesting players to watch at training camp. I mean, maybe they want to move him to safety and they cross-train him there, or maybe they want to use him more as a Swiss Army knife type of player that can be utilized all over the field, a la Malcolm Jenkins or something like that. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see what they want to do with him over these next few weeks. Or who knows, maybe they'll just keep him at corner and they don't switch his position at all. So I guess we'll see. What do you guys think? Do you think a position switch is in store for Ringo this year? And how big of a role do you expect him to have? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. But now, moving on to the last thing that I want to mention, we got to talk about ESPN's recent ranking of the future of all 32 NFL teams, in which they listed the Eagles at number 1 on the list. And in the article, author Dan Graziano's reasoning was as follows, quote, the Eagles have a loaded roster, a front office that has shown a deft ability to maintain and replenish through the draft, trades, and free agency, a head coach who has established a Super Bowl caliber culture in just 2 seasons, and an exciting young franchise quarterback who's locked in long term and appears driven to be great. The Philadelphia sports fan might not be inclined toward optimism, but this team should be changing that. And yeah, I don't think you can argue with that very much. I mean, like the article said, the Eagles have everything. They have a franchise QB. They have the perfect coach who, by the way, I don't think gets enough credit. They have a loaded roster with a great young core, and they also have the best GM in the NFL who I have 100% faith in, and I just know that Howie's going to be able to keep this core together for a long time. I'm telling you that the Eagles got potential to be Super Bowl contenders for years to come, and now the next phase of what Philly 500 dubs the golden era of Eagles football will begin in a couple days with training camp. And even though I'm on vacation, I'm going to do my very best to make sure to cover it with videos and other content. So if you don't want to miss any of that, make sure you subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. And also, if you did enjoy this video, drop a like on it to show some support. And also, let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below just regarding anything that I talked about in this video. And also, if you're one of the people that watches these videos but doesn't necessarily watch my shorts, then make sure you check those out as well. I've been doing a lot of them recently. So again, if you want to check those out, those are there. And if you want to watch another video talking about the Eagles' biggest storylines heading into training camp, then you can go watch it right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.